Greetings, growers. Jordan River here with more Growcast. Today's episode is dope. You're going to love it, especially synthetic growers, but all growers are going to love it. We are talking with Mike from Gorilla Boost about Coco, about high EC feeding, about his time over in Israel. Really cool stuff. You're going to like today's episode quite a bit. Before we jump in with Mike, though, got to give some love to a new sponsor, but an old friend, Microbe Life Hydro. They just gave us a code. That's right. You can find Microbe Life Hydro in your local hydroponic stores. But if you are, for instance, not near a store or you just want to give it a try, go to microbelifehydro.com. Use code MLHGrowcast for 10% off one time. That's right. 10% off your order. Try their Photo Plus. It will change your life. Use their Nourish L, their humic acids derived from seabed. Seabed-derived humic acids. That's the good stuff. Packed full of micronutrients and tying up harmful minerals, increasing the uptake. Use the Nourish L, use the Photo Plus, use the all-in-one, use the vegetable yield enhancer. It's incredible stuff. Everybody likes it. Mike, Rhizo Rich, I'm using it. Microbe Life Hydro, MLH Growcast, 10% off. One time. Thank you for the code. How generous of them. Let's get into it today with Mike from Gorilla Boost. Thank you all for listening and enjoy the show. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to Growcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, I urge you to share Growcast, spread the show, tell a grower. It's how we really grow. Make sure you're subscribed to catch every episode, and give us a good rating and review. Growcast on Patreon for a ton of member content. Patreon.com/Growcast. Today, we are back on the line with a return guest, good friend, been a minute since he's been on, Mike from Gorilla Boost, and much more is on the line. What's up, Mike?
How's it going, Jordan?
Doing very well, my friend. Just doing my thing. I'm growing along, podcasting. The community is doing fantastic. I cannot complain. How are you, my friend? And how have things been since last we spoke?
Things are great. Life is great. The world of cannabis and agriculture is fantastic. Right now, with spring upon us, getting to plan my vegetable garden, which is something that I take extremely serious outside. And I'm lucky enough to have black dirt that I live on, so it's very minimal needs as far as amendments and things of that nature.
Whoa, man. Okay, I don't want to go off on a whole thing, but I got to dig into that. You can't just say that on a show like VeggieCast and then move on. You said you were expanding your vegetable garden by a very large amount, right? Like how much space do you have dedicated to vegetables?
So last year I decided, my wife and I bought a house about 3 years ago, a really nice piece of property, in an agricultural district, and, just put together like 100 by 100 foot, vegetable garden last year. And, this year I'm expanding it by about 2,000 square feet.
That's huge, dude. That's insane. What are you growing? What's your favorite vegetables to grow? What vegetables do you recommend cannabis growers try when they're, personally, I'm a strange individual. Growing cannabis got me into growing vegetables. So what do you think about all those questions?
Oh, I think a lot of things about all those questions. So for me, the ones that I really like, growing, I love different radishes. I know it's kind of like an offshoot, but I'm kind of a radish nerd. So love pickling them, love eating them on salads. So that's something that's always a mainstay.
Nice.
I have like 6 or 7 varietals that I'm going to be messing around with, this season. Some are early harvesters, some are like mid-season harvesters, and some are late harvesters. So, planting your vegetable garden is, similar to planting your cannabis garden, for your different windows and flips and understanding, your time frames. So that's what's really helped me, plan my cannabis gardening and breeding projects. But the other one is tomatoes. I love tomatoes. I'm obsessed with tomatoes. So any type of heirloom variety of tomato is a big thing for me. Peppers, which I would say, cannabis growers, there's a lot of us out there who are extremely into pepper growing and breeding. So that's kind of something that goes synonymous. Peppers are, fun. And then, all the leafy greens, different varietals of broccoli, different herbs. I love growing lemon balm. It's super easy to grow. Makes a really nice, herbal tea. Whether you use it fresh and you pick it or you hang dry it.
Jeez, man, that's a good variety you have. It's a menagerie of plants. Interesting stuff, man.
Oh yeah, I mean there's zucchini, squashes, pole beans, basils, thyme, oregano. I mean the list goes on and on and on, and it's an obsession.
Good call on recommending the peppers, though. I really enjoyed growing that. I know that there's some like aphids are attracted to peppers. You got to stay up on it, but they're worth it, man. I love hot peppers. You're right. There's a bunch of chili heads in the cannabis community. I don't know what that is. I guess they just like flavors. They like all that stuff. It's a good point.
Yeah,
Man.
it's some people are just about the pain as much as I can enjoy some really abrasive heat. I'm not one of the scorpion pepper kind of guys or ghost chili kind of guys. I go maybe max like Scotch bonnet habanero as far as what I cultivate or mess around with breeding.
Nice.
With peppers.
That's cool though, man. We're gonna get into your breeding talk today. We're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about cocoa and not high frequency fertigation, but high strength fertigation. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff today. So I just want to dive right in, man. It's interesting you talk about your natural soil needing little amendment when you're gardening in your vegetable garden, because you take a pretty different approach with your cannabis, right? I don't know if this is lately or, you can tell me the timeline, but you have, let's just say lately, been subscribing to a very high EC feeding technique. And you're saying that this is the way to grow. You're loving it, maximizing the feed, maximizing your plant's expression. Talk to us about that.
So, I started off as an organic grower, both cannabis and fruits and vegetables. And I love organic growing. And, I'm lucky enough to be an owner of a quarter company. So what really that gives me the ability to do is play around with our product and play around with our product the way that people who buy our products, do. So I've been lucky enough to, with a lot of support from different friends, Solstice Ag, which is Front Row Ag, is a salt-based nutrient, and a couple other things. I'm kind of running what a lot of commercial facilities are running these days in bio bags or in rock wool, just to see what is the expression, and to kind of break up the the idea of organic tastes better, kind of like the Cuban cigar to the Dominican cigar. If you take the wrapper off and you give it to somebody, can they really tell the difference? And it's not saying that one's evil and one's 100% pure, and I'm not a hater on organic farming or fully synthetic farming, and I just think it's really important to get well versed in the way how people are using your products. So Solstice Ag sends me their line Front Row Ag, and they have a silica and they have some some other enzymatics. And I discovered that, for my well, I'm at a 0.2 EC. My ppms for my well are roughly fluctuate between 85 and 125, which for well water is great. And
yeah,
it comes out at a pH of a 7.0, 7.068 to 7.0 usually.
Nice.
So I discovered when I was, following their regimen, that I noticed an extremely high EC and extremely high ppm. I started worrying. The plants looked great, but I started worrying because, as going from organic methods before, you never hit the kind of ppms or the ECs.
Right.
So I discovered that in early veg, I was hitting ECs of a 2.2 to 2.4 on average, and the plants were loving it and just eating it up. And I think it's dedicated to a couple things. It's not, hey, let's just take these plants and load them with nutrients. You have to build the rhizosphere first for them to be able to have the ability to take up all those nutrients.
Wow.
Starting off, whether it's from seed or from cut, using different beneficials to help generate more roots, more surface area for nutrients to be able to to be uptook. That now I'm able to pound my plants for lack of scientific terms.
Yeah, sure. Myco. You're talking about myco. You're talking about beneficial bacteria. You're talking about all those fun things.
Correct. So whether it's something like using, using Azos. I'm not sponsored by Extreme. I pay for my Azos.
Sure.
Microbe Life, they make a root and dip product that I talked about, I think, like every episode I come on. But, I love them to pieces.
Oh, yeah, we love Microbe Life too.
And, with those products, I've been able to generate, roots and vigorous roots with, secondary roots and other roots that branch off those secondary roots relatively quick.
Right.
And the other side of it is, a lot of us are moving to LED. So some of the spectrums with LED, if you're running them full horse, the plants are going to need that nutrition on a more frequent basis.
Oh, so true. Yeah, especially when you get to some of these new LEDs are like freaking crazy powerful. We were talking about the new our partner Photon Tech has a CO2 LED that's gonna the feeding capabilities on those are gonna be absurd. It's almost like I don't understand they're going to be powerful as shit. So you're right. It's going to be almost impossible to keep up with that on an organic basis. It's going to be very, very difficult. But I want to really quickly dig into what you said about understanding your water quality, because we just did an amazing Growcast TV episode for the members on a really, really cool tool. Now, this is for tap water. You are in your well water, which is always a case-by-case basis and completely different. But I'm going to wrap this up with a thought. Basically, the EWG has a tap water database, and you can see what is in your water in your city, how many contaminants are there, and how many are above the health guidelines. I was so focused on I was so focused on pH and ppm in my tap water, but looking at the EWG tap water database, it was loaded with contaminants. It was probably the contaminants themselves. When I switched to RO, which, by the way, that database also tells you what filters knock out which harmful compounds. When I switched to RO, everything changed for my cannabis. Interestingly enough, some of the vegetables and herbs seem to almost prefer the contaminated water, which was crazy. But to me, it was less about the concentration of the compounds, because my ppm wasn't too high, but the actual compounds themselves and understanding what's in your water. And it was making me miss my old house with my well water, like you were on, you know what I mean? Because it's probably a lot of good minerals in there to begin with, but it all depends. So I just wanted to shout that out. And if you guys want to check out that episode, it was incredible. We were looking up members tap water live on air. It was crazy. It's sad how poison our water is in this country. It's super, super sad, Mike.
Yeah, the PCBAs, there are a number of towns not that far away from me that their watershed has been polluted by large corporations manufacturing things like Teflon that leach its way, things like that have leached its way into the water system. But the other thing that people don't realize as well is that, with your home testing meters, whatever company you're buying, whether it's, cheap brand off of Amazon or whether it's a well-known trusted brand, they only, measure particles to a certain size. I had a friend who had the copper toxicity in his plants, but his meters weren't picking any of that up. But when he sent it out for analysis, when it showed the actual, ppm that was present, it was really, really scary.
Whoa, that's fascinating. So it has to do with the particle size?
Yeah, particle size has a huge play in here. You have to think about it like from from like a microscope aspect. You have your basic microscope, your scientific microscope, and then you have an electron microscope. The way that you can zoom in, like the same thing with cannabinoid testing. One way can only recognize X, Y, and Z. The other way can go deeper into it.
That's interesting.
Yes, it's almost like a photograph, from the sensory, how they do it. You got the far picture and then you got the zoom in. From the far picture, it seems like everything's good. But once you really get in, you see, how many particles are actually floating around in that water source.
Man, that's super, super interesting. So back to your case, you were worried about this high EC. I'd imagine that what you had in that well water probably wasn't going to be such a bad problem. Probably wasn't some of the horrible contaminants that we were seeing, like things like radium and uranium and radon and all this stuff. So understanding your water source critical, and then what you're saying is kind of shape your cultivation strategy around a high EC. To me, that means growing in coco, having a powerful light to catch up with all of that nutritional consumption. Do you incorporate any sort of flushing? Do you do like a flush feed? What do you do as far as that?
So 100%. So, let's start backwards from flower because everybody always asks about, flushing when it comes to flower.
Sure.
So, roughly about 10 to 14 days, with using synthetics at high ECs and Coir, I'm flushing with some kind of enzymatic,
Interesting.
just the water that's pH and an enzymatic, every day, minus the last 48 hours, which is, a dry down time, which I believe we spoke about, we spoke about on the show last time. And after, so now go to week 5 of flower. That's usually, I do a 2-day flush before I really give, a heavy boost, my last push, and raise on my EC. So at week 5 of flower, the first 2 days are a flush with an enzymatic, and then it's balls to the walls to a 3.0 until the last week of flower, where I drop it down to like a 1.9 or 2.0.
Interesting. So you time your flushes. You have very specifically timed flushes throughout your schedule.
Correct. And, in veg, I'll use it, once a week, kind of situation. Otherwise, I use it like once a week, and some of these enzymatics you can just add in with, whether it's a feed day or, with other microbes. So, common one for me is either Biozyme or SLF 100.
Nice.
I get it from my local store. I think it's, important to always support your local store, even if you're in the industry and somebody's going to send you something for free, support the local shop.
I like that. Yeah, the SLF. I love that SLF 100. Good product. What the Biozyme? That I'm not familiar with. I'm sure I just haven't heard of it. I'm sure it's a big product.
I'm probably saying something wrong, to be honest with you, because I just go in and I tell my buddy, I'm like, yo, you got
No,
SLF 100? And he's like, no, I'm all out of it. I have the da 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 da. And I never look at like the bottle. I'm just like, okay. I'm like, it's the same dosage. Yeah. He's like, dude, use it exactly like SLF 100.
That's
I'm like,
the case,
killer,
though,
man.
I mean, think about going in for Myco now. There used to be one line, right? Now it's like, yeah, that's really interesting. That's true, though, and I like the local support for sure. My local guy smokes cigarettes indoors, right in my face sometimes, so that's a little bit. But we still support him. That's what we do.
I quit smoking a couple months ago, man, and I was never an indoor smoker.
Oh, good for you, man. Good for you. You feel great?
Yeah, starting to feel great. Starting to gain my endurance back, and I'm looking forward to a long, healthy, prosperous life.
Yeah, man. Cut that stuff out. No need for those cigarettes for sure. We'll be right back with Mike. But before we do, Photon Tech, everybody. I'm using Photon Tech. Powerful, efficient LED fixtures. Go to growcastpodcast.com/photon and use code GROWCAST. Everybody, GROWCAST will save you 5% on your LED lights. Photon Tech is the shit. Tested by MJ Coco and Shane. Go check them out. Now, Shane tested the Lumitech Zeus. That's the same thing as this X600. That's the one I have. And it is quite powerful. 1,620 U-moles per second ppf. And the integrated sphere test came in at 2.7 U-moles per joule. So that's pretty efficient. Dr. Coco's came in at 2.3. So that is a very efficient and, more importantly, very powerful light. That's the 600 watt, by the way. They've got the 1,000 watt coming and the 1,000 watt CO2, which is going to be absurd. You're going to want to dim these things down, man. I had to, because they are quite powerful. Code GROWCAST. Make sure to send us a snapshot of this code and every code you use. Unlimited entries. Send all the snapshots of all the codes to be entered. GROWCAST Seedco Seeds. That's USA only. And that's why you should be using GROWCAST codes, especially over at Photon Tech. Very, very good partners. growcastpodcast.com/photon. Thank you so much, Photon Tech. Thank you, listeners. Let's get back to Mike A. Let's get back to this high EC fertigation. Do you want to finish out kind of your beliefs on why it's optimal for plant expression, or should we move on to some other cultivation methods? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, let's talk about why, why it's my hypotheses. I'm not a scientist. I don't have in horticulture or botany. I never claimed to. I've just been doing this for a long time. Sure. And, it's been something of a love and a lot of, my own independent research. So, I look at, you look at our bodies and you look at like a bodybuilder, or you look at, somebody, who, at the gym who's just ripped. Is that 100% natural, or are they taking, some kind of supplement? I'm not even going to say steroids here. because I'm not talking about growth hormones. I'm talking about we're
Right.
talking about straight micros, macros on high EC levels. So you look at that person and you're like, oh damn, they're lifting, they're eating a high caloric diet, nutrients are plant food for lack of terms.
High variety diet, which define natural. That has actually never really been natural. Having a high variety diet,
Correct.
rarely,
And then
rarely natural. I'll say.
and then you're adding these supplements that are boosted with all these other things, whether it's aminos, whether it's vitamins, whether it's it's the same stuff that we're going to use on plants. So where are you going to find all of that naturally and be able to concentrate it and consistently use that?
Right.
And there's not many things out there that you can do that with. And listen, I have friends who are great breeders and they do living sustainable soil, and their shit hits the marks as far as lab
Right.
tests, and you smoke it and it's bomb.
Sure.
And it just puzzles me, because I'm like, what, I want the thing that I can't see the green on it. I can't see I can't see any color on it
Right.
until I crack it open. That's my goal is, let me see how frosty I can get this.
Sure.
Because that's where we've put the value for the most part in here. It's the bag appeal, it's the amount of trichs, now that we've come into a different sense of hash making.
Yeah,
you want a high return on washing, so you want a higher concentration of heads at that point. So my whole hypothesis was, how do we really push these plants? And bringing up the EC and bringing up your ppm throughout the course of flower, just showed me that I was just putting on weight and building structure. Yes, some strains were foxtailing, and I know that foxtailing is regarded in some circles as a no.
Sure.
But what, if I have mass and it's a few foxtails, I don't care, at that point. If I have the concentration, I have the aroma, I have the flavor, that's really what it comes down to. For me, I think plants are always going to express themselves different. You're never going to have the same par reading at every inch of your grow. So there's no possibility for everything to be 100% uniform and exact. So I want to see what the plants can do, how far they can be pushed, and I just started getting checking all the boxes: the weight, the aroma, the terpene concentration, the cannabinoid concentrations, just the look of everything. It just changed my whole view on things. And I still run things in full organic, but I think that you can speed up the process, fatten up the development.
Right.
And I think that, the only drawback that I saw on certain aspects of it is that, on the main colas, the internal stems were relatively thick, but, compared to, other methodology on a lower ppm, and a lower EC, not surpassing really 2.0, that I definitely improved.
That's no problem, though. Who cares about that? It's the last thing I'm thinking about. You make a good argument, my friend. And this is kind of like the Dr. Coco theory, and even like Thor with his DWC, which I'm going to talk to you about in just a second here. That is a very kind of well-developed school of thought, which is these guys believe that pushing the EC is literally the key to maximizing the plant's expression of what it wants to express. Certainly the case with yield. You can't argue that any other way with yield. I do want to talk about kind of senescence really quickly before we move into those other fertigation styles.
Okay.
You say you flush. Do you starve at the end? That is the one thing, because you talked about the foxtail growing. One of the reasons why, that's kind of not something you see in a living soil, for instance, is because of that natural senescence, right? The natural starving period, running out of food. In kind of my lay estimation, a lot of high EC plants, a lot of DWC plants, for instance, they do finish out extra bulky, sometimes with those foxtails, as you said, probably because they're just pushing growth. Do you senesce? Do you starve? Is that something you value, or is that something that you just don't really pay attention to one way or the other? What are your thoughts?
So I don't starve per se. You have that week 5 that's kind of a shocking the plant, with that week 5 flush for the first few days. And then, towards the end with the flush, and then the 48 hours. So, if you think about it, at that point, I'm giving it no nutritional value.
Sure.
But I'm not one of these people who's just going to starve the plant for like 4 or 5, 6 days. My methodology that I'm following is, feeding, 5 to 6 days a week.
Yeah. High frequency. And that the cocoa helps with that. That's the thing. I think really that's the key. When I was in synthetic grower, I was actually growing in high porosity pro mix, which was cool. Like it does dry very quickly, specifically the high porosity blend. But I needed to switch to something like a cocoa. Why do you think cocoa is the best? Because if you're going high frequency, why not a DWC where it's always being fed? Is it just not your style, or do you have several reasons for that?
So why it's not my style, if we were saying, hey, listen, I have, a totally different, building to do this in, a commercial setup, I have to be GMP, X, Y, and Z. Yes. For my home, it's just a lot of things in the works. That water is so hypercritical at that point, and just so many things can happen.
Sure.
With those roots, constantly having contact with water instead of, the porosity from something like a cocoa or, even a pea-based mix.
Right.
I used ProMix back in the day. I used ProMix for a very long time. It was what was available. It was what was cheap. And we amended something like that.
Right.
So DWC would just, never was my thing. And I messed around with some NFT stuff in Israel years ago with different vegetables, and I tried to apply it to cannabis, and I just didn't enjoy the outcome of it and the amount of wrenching when something had to be done.
The NFT, the nutrient film technique.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
The best way to explain it is it's a really shallow enclosed area, and they literally grow in a 1-inch cube of something like a rock wool or a peat based or a coir based and gum based little thing. The most common thing that they usually do that for is different lettuces. So it's an amazing system. It's just a very thin system when you think about like hydroponics, incorporating, aerated water through it.
Very similar to an ebb and flow system. It's just a kind of a size differential type thing.
Yeah, you have more movement going through it, as far as compared to an ebb and flow.
Oh, okay. So, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, it's similar.
Force
that
movement.
It uses a pump, but wow, interesting. And then you said in Israel, like, were you over in Israel, or were you just working for people who were operating in Israel?
I lived on a kibbutz, so I went to kibbutz on a program, and it was where BioBee is headquartered. So I got to focus around IPM as well as different organic agriculture, from a greenhouse aspect in a desert atmosphere. So temperatures getting upwards of like 105 to 108 degrees in the heat of the season. So it was definitely an interesting experience and a rewarding experience.
Oh my God, man. I feel like we could do a whole show on that. A kibbutz is a collective community in Israel, traditionally based on agriculture. So it was like you're living like on an Israeli commune?
Yeah, so they have like
That's incredible.
They have these exchange programs. I kind of got in trouble here in America for a marijuana infraction in the state of New Jersey, and my parents were at that point I had just turned 18. I'd graduated high school and really had no plans, and they said either you go. You go to Israel or you move out, and I went to Israel and took that road for a few years.
Oh man. He enjoyed a plant too much. Send him to a farm.
Yeah, which was funny because, you go over there and you're in the Middle East and you're like, okay, as soon as you land, you're like, where can I find that Lebanese or Moroccan hash?
Yeah, totally. Dude, that is so cool. We've got a couple friends of the show over in Israel. Dino Myco, Ari from Dino Myco. Shout out to Ari. He's awesome. Dino Myco is awesome. And he's over in Israel. And there's a whole, the cannabis scene there is incredible. There's a whole scientific push for medical. There's some anti-cannabis folks trying to keep the recreational side out. He was telling us about people growing in straight sand. Wow, man, I didn't know you had gone there. I would love to talk to you about that. Maybe we'll talk off air about travel stories or something, because that's really cool, man. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's a killer country, and they've been on the forefront of agriculture for years, especially low water impact or reusing your water. So it's just amazing what they're doing. And I'm involved with a agricultural community in the south near the Egyptian and Gaza border in Israel that's doing some crazy, crazy stuff.
Oh, man. That is really, really neat. I think that's super interesting. But let's bring it back around here. We were talking about Coco versus DWC. You like the medium. You like having kind of that some sort of buffer point, not as much as the living soil guys like to talk about their buffer, but something there between the solution and the plant. I do think that brings it closer to traditional growing. I do think that makes it a user-friendly method. And then, you could argue, therefore, a not superior method, but a good choice. Let's put it that way. So.
And DWC is fun, and I've done it before. And, if people at home, if you want to grow DWC, definitely, read up on it. It's a lot of fun. I have tons of friends who love, using this as their methodology. For me, it's just, I like my hands in the cocoa, and I'm kind of spoiled. So I don't have the cost for the cocoa. So why not grow in cocoa?
Yeah, exactly. Man, cocoa itself is kind of amazing, though. Like, if you think about the product itself, it's almost like hemp fiber, in that it actually has a really, really rich history. They find basically pristine cocoa fibers in burials, ancient burials. I'm looking at one site, and I'm also remembering off my head. This site said that in the 1st century AD, Greek sailors wrote about cocoa fibers in East African villages being used to construct a boat. Cocoa fiber has been used for rigging, ship rigging, for all sorts of Polynesian settlers, early Hawaiian settlers. I remember a show called, it's like some stupid reality show, The Curse of Oak Island, which is about a real place called Oak Island, which is a fucking crazy mystery where they're finding like Roman swords in Canada. And one of the things they found there, guess what? Cocoa, tropical cocoa fiber, up all the way up in Oak Island in this, they think it's like a Templar burial ground. It's crazy, man. It's really, really cool.
Think about the trade route, and think about, in ancient times, they had to be a lot craftier than we do now,
yes.
With all the synthetic textiles. So,
yes.
You have things like jute. Most people have no clue to what it's even, and if they do, what it's made out of. It's made out of coconut fiber.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. Say that again. Jute?
Jute, yeah. So it's actually burlap. Most burlap that's out there, things like burlap, not and in other parts of the world, like twine, it's either made out of coconut fiber or it's made out of, hemp.
Whoa, interesting, man. Exactly, and that's literally what propelled our civilization forward. And you nailed it. People back then were craftier than us. If you took a modern person and swapped us out with an ancient person, the ancient person would be using an iPhone in a matter of hours, and we would be struggling to light a fire and probably starve to death. Ancient people were smarter than us in most ways. They didn't know as much as us, but that's exactly right. And they saw the value of this incredible fiber, which never got outlawed because it doesn't have any psychoactive properties.
Correct.
It's interesting. It's interesting stuff, man. I like it. I think it ties in nicely with the history and lore of cannabis. I do think they're kind of intertwined. Pardon the pun.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's in the Bible, man. So, the way that I look at it is, anybody tries to argue it with me, it's like, hey, listen, it's in the good book, that's recognized, and it's in, you find it, reoccurring in every religion,
you do?
Some kind of talk of it. Yeah. If you start doing, and maybe I should give you some homework, to do some research, but,
yeah.
In the Old Testament, they talk about, the tent that they used to worship in while they were in the desert after Egypt, and what this tent was constructed of. And, you had the incense offerings and different things of that nature. Well, cannabis is listed as one of the items in the incense offering, as well as it being used for the textiles.
Cannabis. I thought you were talking about cocoa. Yes, yeah.
No,
okay,
no,
for sure.
No, not cocoa.
No, I was like, dude, what are you talking? Oh, duh, I'm so stupid. I'm stoned, Mike. That was really dumb. That's interesting. Are you talking about is that the sukkah, the holy tent? I need to look into that, man. That's interesting.
It was what eventually turned into the Holy Temple after Egypt when they got into the land of Israel and they built the Holy Temple. It was the temporary Holy Temple that was, best described as a tent.
Okay, interesting. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Really, really cool. Sorry, I was like cocoa fiber in the Bible. That's quite stupid of me. But you know what? I don't edit these things out. I leave them in. I let the audience laugh, and that's how we do it at Growcast. Okay, where were we? This was a great conversation, Mike. Is there anything we missed? Anything you want to say before we wrap it up here?
I think that we hit everything that we hit except for, oh, you know what? I have some fun projects going on right now that, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have some good friends. I'm hunting Jonathan Covert. Covert Genetics is Curry Kush
Nice.
and Outlaw Kush on a very large scale right now. So I got to,
Oh man.
I got a good scale of them, a bunch that I'll have to compare. Some that I'm going to use for breeding. I'm going to be messing around with the Grim Dog, which is the Chem 91 by Cinderella 99 that Mr. Soul created. We broke that out of the vault for me to select a female that's going to go back to him,
Nice.
and then I'm going to work the line a little bit more with some other stuff as well as F2 the line for in-house stuff.
Wow, man, that's really, really neat. We just had Covert Genetics on the show, and I think you introduced us to Heart and Soil. You're like the connection man behind the scenes. People don't realize they should be giving you props because you're a good friend of the show, man. You've made a couple connections that were huge friends of the show. So we thank you, Mike, and I look forward to seeing what happens with that hunt.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun hunt. I'll I'm gonna tag some stuff with Growcast as it goes on Instagram, so people are able to see it.
Thanks, man. That's really cool. It's dope, man. Yeah. So, are there any other hunts in the works?
So I got a couple things picked out. So I got some Heart and Soil stuff picked out for the next time around. His Taste the Rainbow, which was the Mandarin Skittles by the Peruvian Punch, and the Canna Banana, which is the Banana Puddington by the Peruvian Punch.
Mm-hmm.
I got a Triangle Kush by Cinderella 99 that I got to get to. A Goji OG by Cinderella 99. A lot of Cindy, male stuff that I'm getting around to the first gen stuff of hunting to see what we want to do with it and see what we can take to the next level.
That's really cool, man. Good luck. Godspeed. Good luck on the additional thousands of square feet of vegetables. We'll do a veggie cast soon, man, because I want to talk more about that. I did okay with my veg, but I switched to herbs. I don't know. I could use some help, I think, as a vegetable gardener. So thank you, Mike, for taking the time, as usual, to share such wonderful info. Throw out any plugs or handles that you'd like to drive people to, any Instagram or websites or anything?
So anybody, the courier company is Gorilla Boost. So that's at Gorilla Boost. We got Brothers Grimm Seeds. So that's at Brothers Grimm Seeds on Instagram. We do have our website, brothersgrimmseeds.com. We're offering a deal this month. The freebie pack is a Purple Urkel by Cinderella 99 Regs. It's a full pack of beans with every pack purchased. We're calling it the March Madness. So, I urge people to jump on there. We have some really great feminized seeds for people who prefer the feminized seeds, and for people who want to do some hunting and some of their own dabbling and breeding. We have our regular packs.
Nice. I love it, man. Go and get it, everybody. Check it out.
Yeah, and if you want to follow me in my journey, I have a private account. So most people I'm letting in these days. So that's at Rev Diablo Insano.
That's right. Reverend, I assume. Rev Diablo Insano. Go and get it, everybody.
Yeah, Universal Life Church, my friend. $50.
All right, everybody, go hit him up. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, listeners. Appreciate each and every one of you. This is Mike A. from Gorilla Boost and Jordan River from Growcast signing off saying be safe and grow smarter. That's our show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to Gorilla Boost. Thank you to you listeners. Quick love to AC Infinity, the best fans in the game. Their tents are back in stock. I see people sending me those screenshots of them buying tents. Use code GROWCAST15 infinite times. No capulator. 15% off acinfinity.com. Get the smart fans. They're really good. Or even just the S-Series have a 10-speed fan controller. They're the best fans in the game. They're powerful and light. I mean, listen, they're the best fans in the game. Plus those sexy tents. Some of the thickest around, I believe, and still affordable. AC Infinity Growcast 15. Thank you to Jay Blanked for doing the beat. Find him on SoundCloud. That's the ad beat. Thank you to Rizo Rich and Illinois Canna Consulting. Growcast Seed Co. in the works. Stay tuned. Keep teasing it. It's coming. Thank you all. I appreciate each and every one of you listeners. We'll see you next time on Growcast. Bye-bye.